China just lost 9 points in English proficiency, Brazil dropped 21 points, Belgium fell 16 points and India lost 14 points. For the 4th year running, global English proficiency is in free fall, and the generation that should be best at English, the 18 to 20-year-old digital natives, have crashed harder than anyone else, by a total of 84 points since 2015. But wait, shouldn't everyone be getting better at English? We're drowning in English content on TikTok, YouTube and Netflix. Globalization is everywhere. AI is built mostly on English datasets. So why is the world getting worse at the one language that supposedly rules the internet? Today we are diving into the EF English Proficiency Index 2024, 2.1 million test takers across 116 countries, to understand what's really happening and why some recent technological advancements might actually be making everything worse. Before we get into why this is happening, we need to understand that it is happening. So let's talk about what these numbers actually mean and who's getting hit the hardest. The EF EPI uses a 200 to 800 point scale based on the Common European Framework, CEFR, the gold standard for language assessment. Each of the levels, A1, A2, etc., make up for 100 points. So the 18 to 20-year-olds falling by 84 points since 2015 means they fall almost an entire level, which can surely mean the difference between being able to participate in an English business meeting versus struggling to follow the conversation, among other things. When Brazil loses 21 points in a single year, we are talking about millions of people with measurably worse English skills than the year before. Some of the biggest declines are happening in the countries with the largest populations. India dropped 14 points, China dropped 9 points. That matters because these scores are weighted by population size. So when 1.4 billion Indians and 1.4 billion Chinese get worse at English, that single-handedly drags down the entire global average. However, they are certainly not the only ones. 60% of the countries have seen a decline in English level compared to the previous year's edition of the report. But here's the part that's really shocking to me. Let's look at the declines based on age groups. The 18 to 20-year-olds, the generation that grew up with smartphones and YouTube and TikTok, are responsible for the entire trend, only being supported slightly by the 21 to 25-year-olds. The 26 to 30-year-olds, they actually improved by 13 points. Same with the 31 to 40-year-olds and everyone over 41. They are all getting better at English, which is what I expected in general. But the generation that should theoretically be best at English is actually getting dramatically worse, while their parents are steadily improving their English skills. The report states that there are various factors that lead to this drop, but names the pandemic as the most important one. We've been observing this trend for several years now. The pandemic, of course, played a role, particularly with younger generations who experienced significant learning loss during that time. Young people had many setbacks across skills and learning development, not only in English language proficiency. McCormick points out that the shift online during pandemic years actually limited exposure to practical English learning opportunities. So even though young people had more digital access to English content than ever before, they struggled to find actual practical learning opportunities. They were getting less real practice with the language. And now we are seeing something even more troubling. There's a growing reliance on AI translation tools and real-time dubbing to bridge communication gaps. McCormick warns, AI can certainly help bridge some of the language gaps we are seeing, but it's not a replacement for real human language skills. Language is a social tool. It's about building relationships, establishing trust, and working together to solve problems. I made a whole video on this debate a while ago, and my conclusion was exactly the same. I built my language learning app Langia because I believe we are in the age where using AI to learn a language is incredibly powerful, and I don't believe in using AI to replace learning the language. You can import your own content, YouTube videos, news articles, books, and Langia automatically adjusts the difficulty to your level, so you're constantly consuming interesting material that's challenging but not overwhelming. But it's not just passive consumption. You can create multimedia flashcards with a single click and study them in a variety of ways. These words don't just show up as isolated flashcards, they appear in new contexts within your imported content and daily personalized stories, so you learn them faster and more naturally. It's like having the immersion environment that previous generations got by opening a book, but optimized with AI. But back to the problem we are facing. If you can get by with AI doing the translation work for you, then why even bother? Why spend the time to acquire English? What's the motivation? Why struggle through the discomfort of not understanding when technology can eliminate this discomfort instantly? We are essentially creating a generation that's becoming dependent on technological crutches instead of developing the actual skills they need. And the data shows this strategy is backfiring. Because here's the reality. English isn't going anywhere. It's the business language of 85% of international companies. It's the language of scientific research. 80% of all academic papers are published in English. It's the language of the internet. Most AI training data, most programming documentation, most cutting-edge business content is in English. And the correlations in this report are striking. Countries with a higher English proficiency consistently show better economic productivity, more innovation, higher human development, greater social mobility, and even more democratic freedoms. Is this causation or correlation? Probably a bit of both. English proficiency opens doors to global markets and international collaboration, but also societies that invest in English education tend to be more outward-looking and internationally engaged. Dr. McCormick puts it like this. Countries and organizations that invest in English training are essentially investing in their own growth. A workforce that can communicate effectively in English is more flexible, more innovative, and more outward-looking. These are the qualities that drive economic progress in the modern world. But instead of investing in these skills, we are seeing technological advancements that make everything worse. Apple is releasing real-time translation for AirPods. So imagine having a conversation where you speak your language, they speak theirs, and AI handles everything in between. Samsung's Galaxy Buds already do this with their interpreter feature. And then there's YouTube's auto-dubbing. Man, I could go on a rant here. In December 2024, YouTube massively expanded this feature. Now, when you watch a video, YouTube automatically detects your language preferences, then serves you a dubbed version with an AI clone speaking your language. This is removing the natural English exposure that helped previous generations learn the language through entertainment. I covered this need for exposure in more detail in my video on the English divide in Europe. The promise is seductive, break down language barriers and make the content accessible to everyone. But the reality is we're accidentally building higher walls around ourselves, cutting off the global opportunities that English proficiency provides. This is not only true for English, by the way. I learn Spanish and Japanese, and I get a lot of my exposure from content that I watch. So whenever I click on a Spanish video and then the voice is not Spanish, I realize how much I hate this feature. And since this is only getting better, it feels like we are heading toward a world where people think they are globally connected, but they are actually more linguistically isolated than ever before. When you learn a language through authentic exposure, you're not just learning vocabulary and grammar. You're absorbing cultural context, humor, social cues, and ways of thinking that are embedded in how people actually communicate. All of this, all the nuances, get lost if you don't learn the language. So yeah, learn languages. English is just one of them. But maybe you can already understand the language you want to learn, but are not able to speak it. Well, in that case, check out this video next, where we bridge the gap from input to output. Thank you for watching, and I see you next time.